Okay, welcome back everyone. So in this session, as I mentioned, we are going to be covering exactly how to build your first pitch deck. This pitch deck is the one that we're initially going to be aiming at your network, your friends and family, as they say, and is going to be the basis for all of your decks from here going forward. You do a good job on this and you'll be able to tweak and tailor it to the different audiences as I have mentioned previously. And this will really be your one-stop place to be able to come and adjust to exactly who you're talking to. So what I'm going to be doing today is we actually have a template that you can use to build your first pitch deck, and we will be linking that in the comments of this video where you can go and download it and follow along. But what you'll see is there's a number of places where I created a bunch of kind of placeholders for you. So if we start at the beginning, obviously go in, swap out your logo for the design here, change the colors up, do what you need to do to make it look like your brand, and then start off with what the pitch title is. Now this needs to be something really snappy. Don't just say your business name or talk about your problem or anything at that particular stage. This needs to be a nice catchy title that's going to get people interested about what it is you're going to be talking to them about, and then obviously put in your name just so they know who is pitching. Next, I've got some template disclaimer information here for you. This is just something good to have up front in your pitch decks. Now, if you're actually going to be standing up pitching in front of people, you can potentially remove this. Some pitch competitions and that sort of thing do ask you to have a disclaimer up front, and just make sure you swap out your name in the appropriate place. But this is really important if you are sending out the pitch deck, because it is at least an initial legal disclaimer just to let people know that this is considered a copyright and a confidential document and something that they need to take care of and not share around without your permission. So next we want to jump into a little bit about us. Now, before we start getting into what the problem is, etc., we need to set the scene as to why we are the expert in this particular space. So you can see here I have "we are" catchy title. What I want you to do there is I want you to put something in that alludes to why you are the right person to be solving this problem. So we are a team of engineers that specialize in X. We are X type of people that come from this type of background. Basically, like you say, in that title, give the hint about why you are the expert in the space, or why you're the one to solve this problem, and why you can do it a lot easier than everybody else. And then I want you to put 3 points here around what exactly makes you that expert. So it can be, once again, anything about your background. It can be about your work history. It could be about the community that you're involved in, etc. Really just dig deep and think about what 3 bullet points are, and you'll see this throughout the deck. We want short, snappy pieces of information. People don't want to read walls of text, so don't put your whole biography up there. Just put a few little bullet points about exactly what makes you the right person to be in the position of solving this problem. Next, we're going to jump straight into, well, what is the problem that we're here to talk about today? What I want you to do is at the front here, I want you to put the customer type and just use my text verbatim, needs help. So it could be, I don't know, gym goers need help. Farmers need help. Doesn't matter, just put in your customer type, customer persona, and then what I want you to do underneath that is start alluding to why. Once again, don't write a novel, just put one short, sharp sentence about why they need help. So it may be something like, developers need help with speeding up X number of processes, or being able to produce code faster, etc. Just keep it quite generic, but start alluding to what the key problem is. And then what I want you to do is I want you to have done a bit of research, and if you've gone through the Right Tech University, you will have done this already. Go back to your research and extract some sort of quote, or some sort of reference material that can really show that this is not just you saying what you're saying, that there is actual research out in the market, publicized, saying that this is a problem. Grab that, put that in this quote area here, and then reference the source that you've got that from as well. Now, obviously, these images that you'll see throughout the side here, I want you to go and swap these out to be something that's relevant to your particular niche as well. So if you're doing something to do with exercise, have a nice picture of somebody exercising, ideally, because this is the problem. Try and have a picture of somebody having the problem. At this stage, we don't want happy faces and that sort of thing. We want somebody who looks like they're having a hard time. Next, we're talking about the challenge that stems from that particular problem. So once again, you can just use this text verbatim. Today's market expects, and then what is the expectation? So farmers expect quick delivery. Farmers expect a reduction in wastage. Basically just latch onto what the perfect scenario is for your particular target market, and I want you to explain what that expectation is that they have. Not that that expectation necessarily is being met, but this is what they expect. Once you've got, once again, your short, snappy expectation, elaborate on this a little bit. So now we want to start talking about either the what or the why. So if the expectation is that they're having this particular challenge, elaborate on that and say they're having this challenge because whatever once again your research shows as to why they have that expectation and why it's not being met. Then next, but there's a catch. I want you to now talk about, well, what is the challenge that makes this so difficult? We've said, okay, their expectation is that they want to be able to do this thing. Why can they not do that thing? What is stopping them from doing this thing that's so important to them that's going to make you lots of money? I want you to put that in here, and I want you to put exactly what that challenge is that's preventing them. Next, we're going to go a layer deeper, and now we're going to talk about the pain. So if you have gone through the SPIN methodology, then as you know, the P for problem is extremely important, because within that we start drilling down into what is the pain that customers are facing as well. So once again, customer type is feeling the pain. And for the average person, this means, and you might need to tweak this, it might be the average business, it might be the average, I don't know, dog, if you're doing something to do with animals, but basically tweak this line so that it's appropriate. And then once again, from your research, what I want here is I want 4 to 5, try not to go too far over that, 4 to 5 bullet points on the actual pain points that this particular customer type is facing. And if you can relate these back to some of the things we talk about in like the SPIN methodology, where we talk about actually relating this back to whether it's a loss of income, a loss of sales, reduced productivity, whatever those kind of pain points are, but do not make them too generic. They need to sound like it's very specific to the pain that this customer is feeling, and it needs to sound like something that you can solve because you've got this kind of secret sauce that nobody else has got. So if you just say they're wasting time, okay, well, every single app out there says that they save time. Big deal. So once again, important that these pain points are quite specific to the pain that you're describing, but don't go into too much detail and basically bore people to death with big novels. Now, what you'll notice here, there's quite a shift in the look and feel of this particular page, because we now want to focus everybody's attention on, okay, we've described that there's a problem, we've described the pain points and the challenge that are within that particular problem. But at this point, people might be sitting there. You got to remember that depending on who you're pitching to, they might not know how big this particular problem is, and you, being the expert, need to educate them on that this is a really big problem and that there's an opportunity here. So once again, you can see here I've got it all laid out for you. How big really is this problem? Every year, put in your demographic. Every year, this type of person, these type of businesses, this type of animal, whatever it may be, every year this type of demographic. And then I want you to pull up a stat. The bigger the better. So in this case, every year this kind of person has 1 million users that are affected by this type of pain. So once again, bring in your target market, whatever it may be, and bring in your absolute key pain point or your key problem that relates back to those initial slides we talked about. So with this, we're really trying to set the authority that we know the problem and that there is significant size in this problem that makes it worth solving. Now, this slide you're going to handle a little bit differently depending on if you are actually doing a physical pitch in front of people or whether you're just passing them the slide deck, via email, etc. If you are doing a in-person slide presentation, then you can keep this slide really clean. It can basically just have a picture of, if you're building an app, have a screenshot of your app or your wireframes or whatever it may be. Or if it's a sort of non-software solution, then have a photo here of something related to the way you're going to solve the problem. So ideally, if it can be, your solution in use somehow, even if it's just with some test users, or if you can create some sort of imagery just related to the way you're going to solve the problem. If, on the other hand, you are going to be sending this pitch deck, then yes, you still want to have that image, but you may want to add a little bit of text to the slide as well, just so that, they can see that the answer is this, and then I want you to put in some text explaining what the answer is. Now, very important differentiation here. I'm not saying what your solution is. I want you to say what the answer is to the problem. So if we've gone through the whole process of showing them what the problem is, I want you to flip that back around now and start explaining what the answer is to that particular problem in a way that keeps it still quite generic at this stage. It's not your solution, as I say, but you're going to flip it around and say, okay, the market needs a solution that provides this kind of answer, without getting into the details of what your solution is, because that is the next slide. So I want you to just, on that previous slide, hint at what the answer is to the problem, and now you can get into the detail about what your solution actually is to the problem. So here you're just going to put your company name or your group or whatever it may be. So company name provides the solution by, and then give your one-line reason about why you are the solution. Now, ideally, you will have worked on your elevator pitch at this point as well. And so you're going to start bringing some of your elevator pitch back into this particular reason as well. So once again, keep it short, keep it sharp, but start explaining how you are going to be the solution to this particular problem. And then I want you to add, once again, somewhere between 3 and 5 bullet points about how you are the solution. So this is where you can get a little bit more detailed. You can start explaining a little bit of your secret sauce again as to why you are the right person to solve this problem and how you're actually going to go about doing that. So this is where you might explain, a little bit about the tech that you're going to be using, about the networks that you have or you're creating, about the supply chain that you might be using, etc. So this is really where you're going to go in and start adding those bullet points to start showing people why you are the solution. Now, in the longer form deck, From here, we'd actually start going into a lot more detail about how you're the solution, and we'll cover that. But for this first networking deck, the next piece I want you to jump straight into is I want you to jump into the actual ask. The reason we bring this up sooner rather than later, and ideally we would bring this up even sooner, and sometimes we'll cover that later, but we want to start qualifying out the people that we're talking to. So once again, no point in spending an hour doing all this pitching and due diligence discussion and all that kind of stuff with them firing all these questions at you, and then at the end you say, I'm looking for $50,000, and they go, whoa, that's like way more than we were expecting. We're not that type of investor. We need to bring the ask out sooner rather than later, so that they have an opportunity to throw something back at you and say, okay, well, we're not a good fit, or to say, okay, well, we're interested, we can't give you everything that you're asking for, but we can help contribute to this. And when you get to this point in your pitch, particularly if it's an in-person pitch and it's not some sort of pitch competition, I would, after presenting the slide, I would be turning around and I would be throwing the question back to the investors to say, how does this feel? Does this land within your realm? Is this the type of check size that you're willing to write? And start that conversation, flip the script on them a little bit, because at this stage you've probably had questions fired at you left, right, and center, depending on how interactive the pitch session is going. So I want you to be super clear up the top here what the ask is, and I've purposefully put currency in here for two reasons. So one, okay, yes, there is your actual currency. You might be asking for X amount of dollars, pounds, euros, whatever it may be. So be very clear on the currency that you're asking for. But the other thing to remember is that money is actually only one currency. So you don't necessarily only have to be asking for money. In fact, there might be times where you don't have any monetary value on this slide, depending on who you're pitching to. So once again, be very clear on what your ask is, because you might be going in and saying, I want access. My ask to you is I want access to your network. I want access to your franchisees. I want access to your supply chain. There could be all sorts of things that is the currency that you're asking for that aren't monetary, and it's very important to keep that in mind. And this line is also very important. Is this an investment, or what exactly are you asking for? Is it an investment, a partnership, etc.? So be very clear about what this is, and I will circle back to that investment statement in a moment. Next, this part is super important to help us do what? Now, big mistake I see a lot of people make. They go through all of this trouble and then they get to the end and they go, I want $1 million. Okay, that's nice. What are you going to do with that $1 million? Do you just want me to write you a check and then walk away and hope that my money comes back? That is what we're trying to cover here. You're not going to be able to cover it in detail, but you're going to cover it enough to show them that you have a plan on what it is exactly that you're going to be doing with this money. So we are asking for this particular, let's go with investment just for today's example. We're asking for this investment to help us with certain outcomes. So these need to be really tangible outcomes, and be very careful here, because there is a difference between an outcome and just something that you need to do. So don't just put something like, we want to get this investment to write some code and create this certain thing. Be a lot more specific than that. So you can see my examples here. Okay, we're going to use this money to buy this equipment that we need. We're going to use this money to acquire 30 customers, 50 customers, whatever. We're going to use this money to build this very specific piece of the system that is going to help us generate revenue. Last but not least, this line here is really important. Almost everybody you're going to be talking to, unless it's mum and dad, and even then it might be mum and dad, are going to want to know what they get back in return, or what you are building towards. So at the end here, you need to highlight what is the end goal of this round of investment. Now, different investors have got different expectations in terms of what the outcome needs to be. And once again, going back to what I was saying in the previous video, this is where knowing your audience is really important, because some investors are there to help you fund the build of your product. And so your line at the end here can be tailored to that, to say we're going to get the product market ready, or we're going to get to beta, or we're going to get to, if it's non-tech related, we're going to get to the point where we have X kind of network or partnership set up. But once again, it depends very much on your audience. So you need to know what it is that they're going to be interested in here. And if it is money, then you need to have some numbers behind you to be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to spend this money, and once I've spent this money, we're going to have X number of customers, and we're anticipating generating X amount of revenue from those customers. So once again, very important that you know your audience, you know what kind of outcomes they expect from their investment, because it does change. And you have the data behind you to be able to confidently say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do with the money you're going to give us. Now, something I recommend as well, create a little pie chart like this one and just show them a bit of a breakdown of where the money is going to be spent, so that you once again are qualifying yourself to them, that this isn't just, hey, I've asked for $50,000 and I'll kind of figure out what I do with the money after you give it to me. You want to show them you have a really clear plan here, and you want to show them that you've actually thought about, okay, I need X amount for each of these different areas. Because one of the things that the investors are going to be keeping an eye on is, do you actually know what you're going to do with this money once you've got it? Are you going to spend it appropriately to give them the return that they've asked for, whether that's monetary or whatever? And have you actually gone through the exercise of doing proper budgets and all that kind of stuff? So if you can't show that here, then you're going to get torn to pieces during the Q&A section of your pitch, because people are going to latch onto that you don't really know what you want to do with the money, and is going to immediately kill your reputation in front of them. Now, final point on all of this is be very prepared to know what you are offering back to them over and above what you have put in this kind of green section down the bottom. Now, if you are talking to more serious investors, they are going to want a piece of the pie. They're not going to give you this money just for fun and hope that you have a great time with their money. They're going to do it because they want a piece of your business. So be very prepared to have those numbers in front of you and be ready to negotiate as well. So if you're asking for $50,000, at this point, you don't necessarily have to have it up on the slide, but particularly if it's an in-person pitch, you need to be able to say $50,000 for 5% of the company, 10%, whatever it is you're going to be offering. But you need to have a really clear offer on what they are getting for the money that they are going to be giving you. And obviously, if this is not an actual investor pitch, if it is for partners, networks, etc., we can talk you through different strategies you can use, but you always need to be giving something back. So with all of that said, guys, you've now got the basic structure that you need for the first part of your pitch deck. What I want you to do is I want you to go into the comments. I want you to grab the link for the template, copy it, once again, go through, color it, match it to your design style, logo, brand, etc. And I want you to start going through and filling all of this in. Now, if you don't have these kind of numbers and that sort of thing yet, that's fine. You can work on that, and we can work on that together over time and fill it in. But I want you to go in and I want you to get all of these basic slides filled in, and I want you to load that to the group so that we can start auditing it and seeing exactly what needs tweaking, changing, what needs tightening up, what needs re-messaging. And once we get this first phase done, then you've got your initial pitch deck that you can start taking to the market, start getting a little bit of feedback. But very quickly, what you're going to find is that there's a whole series of slides that need to come after this, which are your due diligence slides. So in the next section, we're going to cover exactly the types of due diligence slides that you need to have ready. You need to have them in your back pocket. They don't necessarily have to go out with your pitch deck every single time, but they're things that you're going to have to not only have in your deck, you're going to have to know at the drop of a hat. When people ask you stuff, you need to be able to snap and be able to answer these questions, because once again, these investors want to know that you've really thought this through and that you know the business inside and out, and that you're not just making this up as you go along. So follow me on to the next section once you have completed this particular template, and we will take you through exactly how to start building out those due diligence documents. And then following that, we will start working with you on how to actually pitch appropriately to make sure that you have the best chance of success when you're out in front of these various types of audiences. So I look forward to seeing you guys in the group and can't wait to help you with your pitch deck.